Mario is easily Nintendo's most iconic character and franchise. He's been in countless 2D and 3D platformers and has subseries of sports games, kart racers, party games, RPGs, and more. When it comes to Mario, there's so much to look at that if I wanted to exclusively make Mario retrospectives on my channel, I'd probably still have years worth of content to make. There's just that much Mario out there. But you already know the influence of Mario as a whole. While he may have many games, the 2D platformers he was originally known for haven't truly advanced in years. Strangely enough, the mainline 2D Mario series hasn't received its own original game since 2012 with New Super Mario Bros. U. But why is this? Why would Nintendo put their most iconic character's starting series on the back burner for 11 years? Well, I mean, they kinda didn't. The New Super Mario Bros. Series had at first impressed fans with the original and New Super Mario Bros. Wii, but as the series continued to stay in a boring and formulaic state for years, people began to grow tired of this 2D Mario formula. Sure, the game still sold well, I mean, it's Mario, but fans were clamoring for a brand new and creative 2D Mario experience. Then, in 2015, Super Mario Maker took the world by storm. Being able to create your own Mario levels and share them online brought new life into the series, and it was impressive. The game later got a sequel in 2019 with Super Mario Maker 2, and it seemed like a brand new 2D Mario game was kind of out of the question. How would a standard 8-world 2D Mario experience compare to an infinitely replayable Mario creation tool that would live on for years? Sure, you were limited to the amount of tools and items and such to create levels, but with how much there was, the possibilities were effectively endless. By giving fans the tools to create their own Mario games, what could Nintendo do that would get people to play a new 2D Mario game instead of getting the 2D Mario platform that was the Maker series? Well, let's just say they'd have to get creative. A bit wondrous, one might say. My name is MJ, and this is how Super Mario Bros. Wonder reminded me why I love the series. In June 2023, Super Mario Bros. Wonder was announced in a Nintendo Direct, and immediately caught the positive attention of fans. The game looked incredible and seemed to be a much more original and creative game than the New Super Mario Bros. Series ever was. And the later Direct in August dedicated to the game solidified this even further by showing off a ton of new information about how the game would work with the badges, Wonder Flowers, and various other mechanics, which I'll talk about later. I think my favorite thing about this game is how self-aware the game feels about how the previous games in the series were kind of bland and formulaic. I mean, the gameplay of the Wonder Flower creating a crazy new scenario where you have no idea what to expect encapsulates this perfectly. It's almost as if the game is saying, yeah, our last games were kinda boring, so here, have a wacky new gameplay scenario in basically every level. And it works perfectly. Another great way to see this game's deviation from the norm is just within the opening. Mario isn't in the Mushroom Kingdom. Peach isn't getting kidnapped. And in fact, you don't even have to be Mario in this interactive opening. Mario and friends are visiting the Flower Kingdom, and Bowser steals the Wonder Flower, allowing him to create Castle Bowser, and he starts terrorizing the entire Flower Kingdom. So you and Prince Florian of the Flower Kingdom go on an adventure to stop Bowser and save the kingdom. It's still a very simple and quick setup, allowing you to get right into the platforming action, but it still shows much more creativity than any of the games in the New Super Mario Bros. Series. And honestly, it might be the best setup in all of 2D Mario. Then within just the first level, the game immediately shows you what this new game is about. It gives you the elephant power-up, which is something I'll talk about later, and introduces you to the wonder effects brought on by the Wonder Flowers, which affects the environment in a variety of ways. In this particular instance, it makes the pipes move around like crazy, but it can also do a ton of other things. It's actually kind of insane how many wonder effects there are in this game. Sure, some of them are repeated. Using the moving pipes, for example, it actually comes back in this same world, but it's above poison and in a completely different environment, so it doesn't feel like a complete rehash. Sure, some wonder effects do kind of just happen multiple times, but I don't see this as a bad thing either. Take this goo effect for instance. It's a really creative mechanic that lets you do things like stick to walls, and it's something that if it was just used once, I probably would have been disappointed it wasn't expanded upon. I think it's fine to reuse these effects, and this game strikes the perfect balance between having a variety of mechanics, but also not making it so it seems like they were used only once and then wasted or something. Also, the fact that in some of the levels you have to go out of your way to find the Wonder Flower and have to solve a puzzle or something is really cool. It can sometimes be annoying to go through the whole level and not find the flower, but it makes it all the more satisfying when you do end up finding it. You see, Other than giving you cool gameplay mechanics, Wonder Flowers serve another use, as once you complete the Wonder effect, you get a Wonder Seed. Wonder Seeds are the main collectible of the game, and they allow you to unlock new areas and progress through the game. Another great thing about this game is how it's kind of non-linear. There are these open areas you can run around in the overworld, where you can choose which levels you do in what order. Of course, there are plenty of linear world paths in this game, but these open areas really add a lot, and it makes it feel like there's so much more to do, even if it is the same amount of levels as a linear area. The best example of this is in World 4, where you're immediately set free into a giant open area with tons of levels to complete. Also, once you complete World 3, you can tackle the last 3 worlds in whatever order you want, which is honestly really cool and is something I did not expect a 2D Mario game to do. The worlds in this game follow the same basic theme set up in the new Super Mario Bros. Series, but add so much creativity to them. Sure, there is still an ice world, but you get to go up into the clouds and do a bunch of levels there, which is pretty cool. Yeah, there's a poison area, but it opens up to be a mine shaft with tons of goo enemies and unique mechanics. My point with all of this is to say that this game embraces the fact that the new Soup series was kinda getting stale by filling this game with so much charming creativity, and that's what makes this game so great to me. However, I think there is still a discussion to be had about if the game is actually really good on its own, or does it just feel like such a step up because of how boring and standard the previous games were. I honestly think it's a mix of both. I think the game is really great in a vacuum without looking back at the previous entries, but it's just all the sweeter that this game is such a monumental step up from the new Super Mario Bros. Series. And that's basically the entire point I'm trying to make with this section of the video. One of the best things about this game is how much more creative and unique it is, and the fact that the game acknowledges that by having unique and creative mechanics in almost every level makes it one of my favorite Mario games of all time. And we haven't even talked about the gameplay. Almost right after 100%ing Mario Wonder, I decided to go back and play New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe again. I mean, it's been like 4 years since I've last played it. Maybe it's actually not that bad. I played through the first world, and I immediately stopped playing and started a new file in Mario Wonder. Yeah, it's really hard to go back to New Soup U because the entire time I was playing, the game was just making me want to go back to Wonder. I think the biggest things from a pure gameplay perspective that separate the new Super series and Mario Wonder are the way that Mario feels to control and the level design. I don't know exactly why, but Mario just feels so much better to control in Wonder. I think it's because in Wonder the levels are much less vertical than in New Soup U, and it just feels like you have much more control over Mario's movement. In that game, Mario feels just slightly slippery to me, and the little twirl jump feels much less useful than in Wonder. I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy, but it feels like Mario is much more fluid to control in the newer game. In terms of level design, do I have to say much? As I mentioned just a minute ago, Wonder has levels that feel much less vertical and more condensed, which makes moving around and exploring in them a lot more fun. I know there are much more creative level designs later in the game, but in World 1 of New Soup U, it felt like most of the levels could easily be recreated in Super Mario Maker. There's also just so much more creativity in the Wonder levels. Like the levels in World 1 are basically the same in New Soup U, but in Wonder they feel entirely different and feel much more distinct between each other. There are only a few things I remember from the first couple levels of New Soup U, and I'd probably get them mixed up anyways, but I could vividly describe the first levels in Mario Wonder because they are just that memorable. There are also just a lot more levels in Mario Wonder than in any of the new Super Mario Bros. Games, which makes it feel even more impressive how much more memorable they are. I played almost the entire game with a friend online, and yes, I will talk about the multiplayer later, and I remember getting to the end of World 2, and the both of us were just like, wow, we're less than a third of the way done with the game, and there's already been so much, and there was so much more to come. I'll list a few of my favorite levels though. I like the ones where you get to jump to the rhythm, and the ones with the missile megs, and the ones where you go into space, and honestly, I could just go on and on, but I won't go into too many of the Wonder effects in depth, just for the sake of this video. I love basically all of them. I mean, I did think the ones where you turned into the Goomba was kind of annoying, and I'm glad there weren't too many of those, but yeah, Mario Wonder has some amazing levels overall. Arguably the biggest shakeup this game has, not just from the new Super series, but from the entire 2D Mario series in general, is the addition of badges. I was not expecting them to be this fun and useful in gameplay. I mean, they showed them off in the trailers and I was like, oh, that's kinda neat, but no, they're actually super fun and they have a lot of depth to them. I'm getting a little ahead of myself though. What are badges? Basically, badges give you extra effects and levels, and there are 3 categories of them. The action badges basically give you new moves. There's one that lets you have a floaty jump like Yoshi, there's one that lets you swim faster and break blocks underwater, and there's one that lets you become Spider-Man. Oh my gosh, that's awesome! There are plenty of other action badges though, so let's move on to the boost badges, which give you boosts. These can have you start the course with a mushroom or prevent you from dying when falling into a pit, and some other random stuff. These are very much situational badges, as most of the time you'll want to use one of the action badges since you can only have one badge equipped at once. Finally are the expert badges, which, for lack of a better way of explaining it, they basically hurt you. There's one that turns you invisible, one that makes you springy, and one that gives you an uncontrollable dash. You know, the obvious badges to have. These are more for if you want to mess around or give yourself a self-imposed challenge, which is honestly really appreciated and is something that I didn't expect Nintendo to do with these badges. However, one weakness of the badges is that since the levels aren't really built around having any specific badge, there's not much of a reason to change which one you have equipped other than for very situational instances. I found myself using the parachute cap for basically the entire game until I unlocked the boosting spin jump, which is literally the best badge in the game. I think in games with equipable items like this is a really easy trap to fall into. However, there is one thing I think saves Mario Wonder in terms of its badges, that being the badge challenge levels. These levels are actually how you unlock most of the action and expert badges, and involve you going through a level that is entirely designed around using a certain badge, which is genius. It gets you to use all of the badges throughout the game, and creates challenging levels using the expert badges as well. Unfortunately, the boost badges don't have their own badge challenge stages, but I'm honestly not sure how they would implement them anyways, so it's fine, and also the boost badges aren't super useful. These badge challenge stages serve as reasons for you to try out all the different badges and make for really unique and creative level design. The one thing I'll also say about the badges is that some of them you get pretty late in the game, meaning you can't use them for a lot of levels. Similarly to Pikmin 4, which came out only a few months earlier, I wish there was a New Game Plus mode or something that lets you have all the badges unlocked from the beginning once you 100% the game. This would make a lot of sense as it incentivizes players to play through the game again and goof around or make self-imposed challenges, like beating the entire game with the invisibility badge. But alas, no New Game Plus mode exists in Mario Wonder. I don't think it's as bad as in Pikmin 4, cause in that game there are abilities that you literally get at the very end that you have basically no use for them, but in this game you still have a lot of the game to go through once you unlock all the badges, so it's pretty good. Alright, I mentioned them briefly earlier, but Wonder Seeds are the main collectible throughout the levels, and are how you progress through the game. In the main platforming levels, you get a Wonder Seed for beating the level, as well as getting one for finishing the Wonder effect in said level. There's also occasionally a third Wonder Seed for finding a secret exit, but most of the time, levels have 2 Wonder Seeds each. However, these aren't the only levels in the game. Scattered around the world, there's also smaller levels that give you a Wonder Seed for just completing whatever task they have. The badge challenges are an example of these, but there's also stuff like the Wiggler races, and the levels where you have to jump to get the flower tokens, and then it plays a little tune, and then the coins are on the notes of the tune. Oh, this game is so good! However, there's one type of level that is genuinely horrible, and if you've played this game, you know what I'm talking about. The search party levels. Okay, well, they really aren't that bad, they're just super annoying to beat on your first time through. Basically, these levels consist of a small open area where there are 5 flower tokens hidden throughout that you have to find. Simple, right? Well, when I say hidden, I mean hidden. Each level has its own theme, with one being about the different power-ups, one about pipes, etc. But some of these tokens are super hard to find, and when you're given basically no hints as to how to find them, it can get pretty frustrating. The worst search party level is the one with the different character blocks. You're supposed to use different characters to find these blocks, which will show you where the tokens are. Sure, you can do this with just using the same character, but it's going to be very difficult to do so, especially if you don't already know where the tokens are. This means most people are going to have to leave and re-enter the level with different characters just to find like one block. And also, when you re-enter the level, the amount of tokens you had resets, so you have to find them all again. How fun! I think the intent of these levels was to explore them with other people online, whether it be friends or randoms, and find the tokens by working together, hence the search party name. However, this honestly doesn't work at all for its intended purpose, making these levels really annoying on their first time around. They aren't that bad because there's not that many in the game, but I kinda had to rant about them because they're super frustrating. In terms of collectibles, there's also these 10 purple coins, which act as the star coins, or green stars, or star medals, or can we just stop doing different collectibles in every game, please? Anyways, there's 3 of these 10 purple coins in almost every level. Of course, they're in all the main levels, but they're also in some of the smaller levels, but not all of them. However, instead of being a collectible for the sake of being a collectible, these purple coins can be used in shops throughout the world. You can find purple coins by just exploring the levels normally, but these 10 purple coins really help to get your money up. You can use these purple coins to buy wonder seeds, some badges, 1-ups, and standees. I'll talk more about standees during the multiplayer section, but they're another kind of collectible that don't do much but are fun to collect. The shops are okay. They serve a purpose, and having a shop in a 2D Mario game at all is still very cool, but to be blunt, I wish you could buy things that are more interesting, like costumes or something. I don't know, they're fine how they are, and I don't have that many complaints about them. The only other collectibles are the tops of the flagpoles, which are more of a completion requirement for each level than a collectible, since they don't really do anything for you, and it just involves you getting to the top of the flagpole in every level. Now the power-ups. There aren't a ton of power-ups in this game, but what Mario Wonder lacks in quantity, it very much makes up for it in quality. Fire Flower is the only returning power-up because, well duh, it's the Fire Flower. But there are 3 new ones. First is the Elephant Mushroom, which turns you into an elephant. This allows you to break blocks and hit enemies with your trunk, and store up water in your trunk that you can spray the environment or enemies with. The power-up isn't super useful, but it's fun and goofy, and I was always happy to see it. Next is the Bubble Flower, which is super cool. This allows you to make bubbles that you can not only jump on to get height, but you can also easily kill enemies with them, making the power-up very useful, especially in the KO Arena challenges. Finally is the Drill Mushroom, which honestly might be my favorite. This allows you to dig underground and on the ceiling, and hit enemies above you with the drill. It's honestly just really creative and surprisingly useful. I honestly love all these power-ups equally though. They all have their strengths and weaknesses, and I found myself using all of them many times throughout the game in various situations. This might honestly be the best power-up lineup in the entire series. It's just that good. I know I briefly talked about the worlds earlier, but I'm going to use this time right now to talk about them more in depth individually. The first world is the Pipe Rock Plateau, which is a pretty standard first grassy world, but it still has a lot of fun and creative levels, and serves as an amazing start to the game. Next is World 2, Fluff Puff Peaks. This is a pretty standard ice world as well, until you start going into the clouds, and it's really cool. It doesn't stick out too much in my mind, but especially when I was playing it for the first time, I thought it was really cool. World 3, Shining Falls, is probably my least favorite, but it's still pretty good. It's a jungle-ish area that has different trials, as they call them, but it's honestly not that very memorable of a world in my opinion, and the fact that each level is a trial doesn't really affect the gameplay that much. It does have some cool levels though, so I can give it that. World 4, Sunbaked Desert, is easily my favorite world in the game. Like, it's not even a competition. Not only does it have the biggest open area in the game, not only does it have a ton of hidden areas and branching paths, not only does it have mirages that only turn into levels when you get close to them, which is a really cool small mechanic that plays into the world's theme, but it has the Wonder Seed Black Market. What more do you want? I love this world, and when I think of the creativity in this game, this is what first comes to mind for me. World 5 Fungi Mines takes the poison theme and does something really creative with it by making it a mine. But once you get in the mine, there aren't that many levels and it's very linear. I still really like the theme and the levels of this world, but it's kinda disappointing by the end. I was kind of expecting more from it after the little opening area. World 6 Deep Magma Bog is your standard lava world. That's about it. I mean, it's good, it has good levels, but it's also very linear. It does have 2 secret exit levels though, so that's cool I guess. The Petal Isles are kind of a world. I mean, there's a world's worth of levels scattered around it, but they don't really have a consistent theme, and kinda just serve as fun levels to do in between the big worlds, which is still pretty fun, and I'm glad that it's here. The Flower Castle that's turned into Castle Bowser is also kind of a smaller world. There's a few levels to play right before the final boss, and they're pretty fun. They follow the same theme of the random airship and boss stages that pop up throughout the game. Speaking of, I haven't really talked about the bosses yet, but that's because they're not very good. First of all, there's not even a boss in every world, which is pretty disappointing. But when there is a boss, it's just a variant of Bowser Jr. Sure, he has the Wonder effect making him all cool and emo, and all of his fights are different enough, but it's honestly just kinda boring by the end. The airship stages also don't even have bosses. They just have these Bowser machines you have to blow up by running 3 feet and pressing a button, and they're super easy. I love the aesthetic of these new Bowser stages with the green and all that. It's much better than the traditional Bowser castle, but the bosses in this game are either non-existent or so much of a snooze fest presentation-wise that I wasn't really excited for them at all. This is honestly my only real serious criticism of the game. It got so close. At this point, I would have preferred if they brought the Koopalings back. Yes, I would rather have these little gremlins come back for the 13th time than have to fight Bowser Jr. 5 more times again. They don't even necessarily have to have wonder effects. I would take the raw, regular Koopalings over this. Oh, but MJ, what about the final boss? Isn't that a super fun fight? Honestly, yeah, it's a pretty good fight. But I'm saving talking about that for the conclusion section of the video, so I'll get back to you on that. There is one world I didn't mention though, and that is the special world. In all the other worlds in the game, there's a secret exit you can find that will take you to one of the levels in the special world. These are the hardest levels in the game, and once you complete all the special world levels by finding the secret exits in all of the worlds, you get a super hard final level, which I'll talk about later. Anyways, yeah, this game is actually kind of difficult. I mean, it's not going to be like Mario Kaizo levels of hard, but I still found myself having trouble with some of the levels, especially in the special world. I think this is a welcome addition, as Mario has always been pretty darn easy, even if this game doesn't get crazy with its difficulty. Anyways, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about the gameplay. But what about the presentation and multiplayer? One of the biggest things I noticed after playing Wonder was when going back to New Super Mario Bros. U, the art style was just bland and boring. Mario Wonder is so colorful and creative, and the characters and environments are so full of life and wonder and whimsy, and yeah, it's just really good. As I mentioned earlier, the world and level designs art style wise are really creative and fun and are a true evolution of the series. This honestly might be my favorite 2D Mario when it comes to its art style, because it still has the standard Mario feel while also being so distinct and creative. And the way the characters move around and their expressions are just so full of life, very different from the new Super series where they just all look so robotic and bland. But when it comes to the soundtrack, it's good. I like most of the songs in this game, but nothing really stood out to me all that much. I don't know, maybe it's just because the game is so new, but the tracks just seem kind of average to me at times. I still think they're really good tracks, and I could definitely see myself using them in more videos in the future, but as I said, nothing really stood out to me all that much. Why is it that most of the big Nintendo games this year have been really great, but only have good soundtracks? Anyways, yeah, the songs are pretty good, but nothing that really stands out all that much to me personally. Now, something that I didn't really know where else to discuss them are the characters. You can play as a ton of characters in this game. Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, Yellow Toad, Blue Toad, Toadette, 4 different Yoshi colors, and Nabbit are all playable right from the get-go. However, unlike other games in the series, these different characters don't have different attributes or moves, which honestly makes sense. When there are this many characters available, I'm willing to have them all basically be the same, which also made me switch characters more often, which was pretty cool as normally I just like to stick with the same character for the entire game. I do wish there was at least one unlockable character in the game though. I mean, when the amount of characters is one of your biggest selling points of the game, it kinda stinks that there wasn't a secret extra character you could unlock or something. But that doesn't really take away that much from the game, so it's fine. However, what does kind of take away is that all the different Yoshi colors and Nabbit are all easy mode characters. They can't be hurt by spikes and enemies, but they can still die from lava, poison, or falling into a pit. I think it's great that this game has a way to make the game easier, especially for the kids who may have trouble with the harder difficulty, but when you lock it to a certain character with no way to turn it off, it's kinda disappointing. There was only one level in the game where I used Nabbit, and it was the hardest level in the entire game. This was just because I didn't get one of the purple coins my first time around, and I wanted to easily just be able to go back and grab it, even though Nabbit didn't make it a cakewalk by any means. I just think it should have been a toggleable assist mode instead of locking this easy mode behind certain characters, because if I want to play as these characters, I have to sacrifice by the game being so easy. However, the character selection for the non-easy mode characters is great, so I can't complain too much about the characters overall. So, about the multiplayer. It's interesting. The trailer showed off that there was sort of online play with other player ghosts or something, but it wasn't super clear exactly how it would work in-game. So, here's how it works. When you turn on the online mode, you'll play with random people doing whatever in the game. You can see them playing in real time, but they don't directly affect anything in your game. However, if you die, your character will turn into a ghost, and if you can get to another player in time, you'll be revived, which is honestly pretty cool. Standees can also be placed by other players, and they do the same thing. If you die and can get to someone's standee in time, you'll be revived. I think this is a really cool addition to the game, as it allows other players to help you while also making it so they can't negatively impact your game, and it also cuts down on lag. But what if you wanted to play with specific friends online? Well, unfortunately, it works the exact same way. You just create a room and your friends can play through the game with you in the same way that random players online do. In some ways though, I prefer it because it makes it so that you can kind of do your own thing, but you can also play levels at the same time if you want to. However, I do wish the traditional online multiplayer that is used in local play was also an option, especially when you consider the fact that both Super Mario Maker 2 and 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, the last two Mario games to come out, had this normal kind of online multiplayer. It just seems so weird that they didn't add it here. Regardless, I do still really like the multiplayer, and I played through most of the game with one of my friends online like this, and we still had a lot of fun. Finally, there's not really any extra modes or anything in this game. New Super Mario Bros. U had challenge stages and multiplayer modes that, while not anything crazy, still gave you more to do in the game than just the main levels. And Mario Wonder doesn't have any of that, which is kinda disappointing, honestly. I will admit it is a bit unfair to expect this from this game, especially when it does a lot of things better than New Soup U, but I still wish they had more side stuff to do, because once I beat the main story and found all the collectibles, I was basically done with the game. Now don't get me wrong, my playthrough was about 20 hours long, so I still got a lot of content out of this, but I wish there was just a little bit more for me to do other than the main story and beating all the levels. I mean, I could just replay the game again, and honestly I plan on doing that a few times, but it's just when looking back at New Super Mario Bros. U, that had a ton of extra stuff you could do once you beat the story, so why doesn't it have it here? I want more to do after I reach the end of the game. Speaking of the end of the game, so as you travel through the different worlds, you get the royal seeds to weaken Castle Bowser. Once you find all of them, you can enter the castle and do the couple of stages that are there that I mentioned earlier, and then you fight the final boss, which is actually really good. It's easily the best fight in the game, not that it has much competition, and it makes use of these platforms where you have to time your jumps to hit the machine. It's also not a cakewalk either, and I actually died on my first time fighting it. This Bowser robot is really cool, but once you defeat it, you're done. You don't actually fight Bowser throughout the entire game. In fact, you barely see him at all outside of his robots. It's really just his castle and airships. It's really strange to me that we don't actually fight Bowser directly, and it would have been really cool to have a second phase where you fight him head on while the Bowser Wonder effect is being broken or something. As it stands, the bosses are easily the worst thing about this game, which is really disappointing, honestly. I really wish they did more with them and used that same level of creativity they used for everything else in this game to make new bosses. I don't dislike Bowser Jr.'s fight, it's fun the first time, but when you do it like 3 or 4 more times throughout the rest of the game, it's kinda boring, and I wish they had bosses that were themed around each world or something. That would have been super cool. But yeah, you fight Bowser and then you're done. You save the Flower Kingdom, but there's still some more you can do. Once you beat all the special world levels, you can challenge the final test Wonder Gauntlet. This really difficult level is a compilation of a ton of the wonder effects found throughout the different levels, and serves as an excellent send-off to the game. It's pretty difficult and is super satisfying to beat, but believe it or not, that's not all. Once you get all the Wonder Seeds, all of the 10 purple coins, and all of the tops of the flagpoles, the final test, Badge Marathon, unlocks. This is easily the hardest level in the game, and it's insane. Each section of the level has you equipped with a certain action or expert badge, and you have to use those badges to make it through the hardest platforming challenges in the game. It's incredible and insanely difficult, and I love it. Once you beat this level, you're rewarded with the final badge, the Sound Off badge, which changes a lot of the sound effects in this game to make them sound like humans imitating them in a way, which is a very funny and goofy reward that I think is kinda cool to get after doing all this. And that's pretty much it. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is over. This game isn't perfect, but I think it's incredible nonetheless. It's so creative and fun, Mario feels unbelievably fluid to control, the badges add a ton of extra depth to the game, and the harder difficulty makes this one of, if not my favorite 2D Mario game, of all time. I don't want to definitively say it is my favorite, since part of it might be recency bias talking, but I think it honestly might be my favorite. It honestly just feels so surreal to say that I've 100% completed the newest 2D Mario game, since I've been wanting a brand new entry for years. Also, when you look at this game in the broader context of Nintendo and the Switch, it's honestly kinda bittersweet. This is most likely the last big game the Switch will get. We got Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, we got Pikmin 4, we've gotten a new title from basically every Nintendo series, and now we have the newest 2D Mario game. The upcoming lineup for the Switch has some cool stuff like Princess Peach Showtime, but there really isn't anything huge coming out, and there most likely won't be until the next system. The Switch's life is almost over, which feels weird. I got into Nintendo with this console, and I've had so many memories with it. I think Super Mario Bros. Wonder is the perfect send-off for the Nintendo Switch, even if it isn't the last game or anything. But if it was the last game, I think it would have been perfect. I absolutely love this game, and even though it might have some problems, I can easily see myself coming back to it again and again for repeat playthroughs. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is amazing. Alright, now it's time for that part of the video where I just start yapping away. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, it truly means the world to me. This video has taken a lot of time and effort, and I've been working on it a lot over the past few weeks. I'm sorry I haven't really been posting as much lately. I started school and now I have a real job. Yeah, that's right, screw you YouTubers. So I've been kind of busy lately. However, I do have plans to make 2 to 3 more videos before the end of the year, so stay tuned for those. If you want to stay up to date with what I'm working on, the best place to go is my YouTube community tab, but I also think I'm going to start posting more updates and other behind the scenes stuff on Twitter, so if you'd like to go follow that, you can. It's also probably the best place to reach me, so if you need to do that, there you go. Also, make sure to go follow the goodboy575 on Twitter, as he's the one who made the thumbnail for this video and for the Pikmin one. I truly can't thank him enough, especially since he's going to be working on more thumbnails for this channel in the future, so definitely make sure to give him a look. Other than that, I'd say if you want to check out more of my content, there's a big long Pikmin series retrospective that I'll also have linked in the description. The video got corrupted, which is a super long story, but the TLDR is that the video got corrupted when I put it onto a drive that couldn't really hold it, and I didn't know it couldn't hold it, and the only reason I had the drive was because I was running out of space on my computer. So when I exported the video and thought it was fine, I was like, oh, I'll just delete everything now so I have space on my computer. So I didn't have the clips anymore, and then when I saw the video on YouTube, I was like, oh, it's corrupted, then figured out what I did wrong, and it was just too late. I couldn't fix it. It's still watchable though, I'd say still give it a look. It's just there's going to be some visual and audio errors sprinkled throughout. You can still get my opinions though, and it's an hour-long video, so definitely go check it out. And yeah, I'd say that's about it. Again, thank you so much for watching the video, and definitely go subscribe. I didn't say subscribe yet, that's like the YouTube code. But yeah, that's it from me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.